Welcome back to the Weekend Warriors Show Recap Podcast. I'm Tyler from the Unemployed Architects. This week I'm going to be talking about my show this last weekend at Clark Bar in Champaign. Only had one, so a little bit less going on this February. So picks right back up in March. Got almost every day booked in April and May. In June, I have a few days left. July, I have a few days left. So that's kind of where I'm at. But trying to appreciate the less things and maybe get some focus on some other areas, get some other things maybe more completed. But so Clark Bar, we went down early enough. Wasn't running too late this time, and I decided to take a weekend off from my foot drums, which was nice. Not having to do that extra work and set up that extra gear. They put us in a different spot, so this is the third different location in the bar that they've had us set up and play. So probably the best. It was on like the back wall right when you walk in, so you have a lot more room to kind of spread out a little bit. And I think sound-wise, it was probably a better area because I did like a main and a front fill, which is my general setup most of the time. And kind of like the way that bar is set up, it made like three different like stages. Like if you really wanted to pay attention and focus, you could be right up front. And there's like a separation of like a ledge, and then like a middle location where you could probably still have like a fairly reasonable conversation, not talk to have to like shout over it. And then by the bar, it's more like background music. So it had like it was kind of cool that way. Wherever you sat, kind of dictated how loud it was, so you could kind of control that yourself. And there were, by the end of the night, there were some sitting up close, there were some in the middle, and there were some by the bar. So I think overall we played really well. I used my in-ears. Lo came with me, so it was just me and her. And it's just a pretty straightforward show, ultimately. I had a couple friends come out, and so I had the Tabs, and they come there a fair amount to Clark Bar, and her band played there the night before. I think it was Jimmy Dragonfly. She's in two bands. So yeah, she came the night before to play, and then came the next night to watch us. So that was super nice. And then also a friend of mine, Ryan Wolf from Pontiac, and his girlfriend Sydney, they came out, and I had Ryan play a few songs, which was cool. I always try to get him in the mix whenever he's there, and he sounded really good. I don't think we did anything too crazy. I think it was a pretty straight up show. We actually stayed at Ryan and Sydney's place after in Champaign, and that was this crazy old house that they're just renting like through Airbnb, I think. But it was very large. Had a few bedrooms and backyard, upstairs, downstairs, a couple bathrooms. I mean, it was a large place, and it was like a big old house, so it was probably haunted. But so we hung out with them after and kind of caught up, and I listened to some Ryan's new music on. He played a few new songs for me, which was cool. But so that was the Saturday. Friday night we didn't have a show, but it was Valentine's Day, so we went out. We let's see, what did we do? We went to a movie. We went to Downhill which has Will Ferrell and Julie Louis-Dreyfus in it. And we kind of, I don't know, with those two, we imagined it being a little bit more of a comedy, but it definitely went the other way. It was like a complete drama. So, which was really, really good. I mean, don't get me wrong. It just wasn't what we expected. Looking for maybe something a little bit lighter on Valentine's Day, but that was fine. It was shot very cool. Kind of had a Wes Anderson vibe with the way it was shot, and then very serious topics. Like we watched a movie not too long ago called Marriage Story on Netflix, and it had kind of a similar vibe. Like it was almost like a little too real in some spots, but overall great movie. And then we went to Anju Above, which was just the restaurant we usually go to on big events, holiday, anniversary kind of thing. And I got some sushi and some pizza, and it was delicious. And it always pretty much always is. They kind of do like a farm fresh type thing, and they have like a downstairs restaurant, which is way more expensive, but it's called Epiphany Farms. Everything's kind of grown in house and stuff. And we actually had to go put our name in because they don't do reservations for under 6 people. So we put our name in, and then we walked down to this bar that's right around the corner called 8-Bit, and you can play like video games. And I'm not a huge video game guy, but I actually enjoyed it quite a bit more than I thought I would. Kind of took some searching to find the right games and everything, but overall it was fun. And then they have like 2-player stuff, so with me and Lo we could play games together, and we had a good time there. I think it's like $10 minimum, and then you can just play as much as you want, so that was fun. And then we went back up to Anju and ate. And then I had heard there was a guy playing that I was interested in seeing at Cadillac Jack's, so we went over there and watched him play for a little bit, and that was cool. He was pretty good, very young. I think that was one of the main takeaways, but very good singer and good performer. And I think he normally plays in a band, so he seemed a little nervous to play by himself. But it was good overall. He did a lot of like kind of pop covers, pop country type stuff, which isn't necessarily my favorite, but he did a couple originals, and that was cool too. But he was very, very stuck to that iPad. It seemed like maybe it was a comfort thing, but I don't know. I feel like you can perform a little bit better if you be more in the moment, maybe, if you have the song like down, don't have to stare at an iPad. But it was still good, and we hung out there for maybe an hour, watched him, and like I said, very, very talented, very good. And then we went back to 8-Bit for a little bit, and then I found that I had to work the next day before the show at Clark Bar, and so we ended up kind of called it a little bit early. I mean, it was still like 11:30 by the time we got home. But yeah, so that was the weekend. Nothing too crazy exciting. We're playing at Houdini Spirits this next Friday, and then we have Saturday off again, and then we're at the Trading Post the Friday after that with the Saturday off. So I don't even know what we're gonna do with all this extra time. But I thought I would. I started this message chain with everybody from that used to be in the band, I guess. I don't know if you still consider some of them in the band or not, but I started it with Kev, the bass player, Blair, the vocalist, lead guitar player, and the drummer, Big D. And we were kind of reminiscing about some stuff, and it was fun to kind of think about stuff that I hadn't even maybe happened 10 years ago. So I hadn't really thought about it in a while, and some of these stories that happened to us way before I would have even thought to have a podcast. So I thought it might be kind of fun to reminisce about one of them a little bit. And I mean, there's a bunch, so I'll probably do this periodically. Maybe since there's not a ton of shows coming up until March, maybe I'll pick a story and kind of just recap kind of what happened. So the first one I'm going to talk about, I used to use this website called Sonic Bids to try to book some stuff sometimes, and you'd pay a membership, and then you'd apply for different things. Kind of, I don't know, kind of a scam, I think, ultimately. I tried it a bunch of times. Nothing really that cool ever came of it. Maybe, that's a reflection of where we were at musically. Maybe nobody really wanted us. I don't really know. But, so, I got this one response, and it was for a festival, and I still can't even get into hardly any festivals. I have a couple that I can work my way into, but nothing too crazy cool. But back then, like zero festivals. So I was, yeah, we should do it. And it was in Indiana. Can't remember the town, but so they ended up and hit us up and were like, we'd love to have you at this festival. It's called the Campfire Sessions, and it's just $100 fee because we will provide you a place to stay, and it's the whole weekend. You'll get to play twice, and anything that's pay to play, I should have been a red flag. Like, maybe don't go to, maybe leave this one out. But we were young, we didn't really know what was what, so we decided to do it. And we got up. I remember getting up so early that day and packing. I think we brought the Yukon, which is later a different story. But when we got robbed in Detroit, that was the car we were driving, but which is Blair's parents. But it was a giant SUV, so good for loading gear, and we had to bring a lot of gear. And I remember there's a film of it somewhere, but Blair on top of the Yukon packing the topper, or whatever that thing is, little bag that you can put on top of so like all our bags went up there, and then all the gear went in the car. But I remember 6 a.m. just being like, how does he have that much energy? Anyway, so then we drove. I think it was like a 3-hour drive or something. And, we're overly excited. We actually got a couple buddies to come stay with us, too. I think Brad and Emily and a friend of ours, Scotty, maybe John Rainbolt was there as well. But they decided to trek along with us, and we get there, and it's essentially just a campground. I mean, that's, for like a summer camp or something. And it looks really nice. I mean, it was the summer, so it was really nice out. But we get there. They scheduled our first set, I think it was 3 in the afternoon. So it was a little bit early, and we got there and we set everything up and played for the people we brought. Essentially, nobody else got there, and our set was supposed to be like an hour. And the band that was supposed to play after us just didn't show up, so we ended up playing maybe a couple hours. And we were like, man, this is totally not what we thought it would be. As the night kind of wears on, we realize that this is, mostly just bands. Like, there's no, actual people, fans here. Or maybe, the girlfriend of the bass player, or but nothing extensive at all. So everybody's there for themselves. There's not really a lot of I mean, I went and watched some other bands because there was just nothing else to do necessarily, but a lot of them were just heavy metal, just scream type stuff. So we were one of or they were young punk pop kind of kids. So we were kind of one of the, I mean, we by no means were amazing, but we seemed like we may have been a little bit better than some of the bands, because we actually had singers, and we were more on the rock side, not the punk pop type stuff. So we seemed a little bit more like a band. So though this wasn't anything what we expected it to be, we got a lot of really awesome feedback, and a lot of younger bands really. I think they mostly looked up to Blair, because he was he had a sweet guitar, and his pedal board was crazy, and a good amp, and he was playing in a band. So I feel like he had kind of he got a little idolized almost from a lot of these younger punk pop kids. And so it definitely, the whole thing fed our ego maybe a little bit too much, but we felt like we were so good. But of course, watched. We have some video from it. I know exactly how good we were, but anyway, and the PA they had was like 2 speakers, no monitors, and a mixer. So I mean, it didn't sound great. And we figured, this is a festival, so they would be legit on their gear when we got there. But quite the opposite. And but we got a lot of good feedback from the other bands, and then our second show the next day was like, pretty busy. It was indoor instead of outdoor, but it was but I mean, we did a bunch of crazy stuff that night after we played. Watched a bunch of other bands, but there was a bunch of stuff they had going on. There was one like interactive art thing where they were like painting while there was like a guy doing some looping, and then there was, I remember we went out, it was on a lake, this summer camp, so at like midnight, it might not have been midnight, it was pitch black though, so I don't really remember the exact time, but we went out on the lake, and they had canoes that you could use and paddle boats, so we went out real late, and that was kind of fun, and I don't know, it was definitely a different mentality, because it was like, all of us were definitely like over 21, so everybody was like drinking and stuff, and I think there were a lot of younger kids there that weren't really allowed to drink because they were too young, and there was other substances obviously being passed around here and there. But at one point, I think the cops came, and one of the bands that we actually really enjoyed there, I think they were called Pearl Snap or something. I remember I had to flush a bunch of stuff down the toilet, I think, because the cops came. But it was just a super weird experience. Ultimately, they had this slide. Like the next day after our set, we went over, and it's like this slide that was like a football field long. Well, it's probably 50 yards, probably not a football, but I mean it was long. But the bottom was blocked out. So like you would go down the slide, and it would be like kind of fun, but at the end it was blocked off by a giant piece of wood. So then you just have to crawl back up. You couldn't like go around. Real weird, but we ended up and hung out there for a little bit. And I mean, I don't know. I feel like ultimately it was kind of a scam, and it definitely was not what we expected. We expected like festival in a different state. Like we felt like, oh, we're a legit band. This is gonna be legit, and it was very, very unprofessional and very like laid back, and not a lot of people, and overall just super, super weird. I mean, so our expectations were not met in that way, but they were kind of met in a different way, because it was just like it was like a mini vacation. We hung out, we had our good friends there, and we got to play music, which was fun. And I think once we got there and we realized what it actually was, like I said, a little bit of a scam, we kind of, our bar that we set for what we thought would be kind of melted completely, and then we had zero expectation. We're like, oh, we were all kind of disappointed. But then as the night wore on, we ended up and had like a lot of fun, because our bar, what we were thinking it was going to be had been, completely dismantled. So we ended up and just had fun. We hung out with a lot of other bands. We talked to a lot of other bands. We kind of got their info. We watched, we saw a bunch of bands. There were probably like maybe 5 or 6 similar level but different genre from where we were at then, and it was fun, but just in a completely different way that I wouldn't have expected. So that was our trip to Indiana. So I do have a couple good memories of the people we brought that second show. Just like one of the things I was texting the guys was like, I remember playing in Indiana, the campfire sessions the second day, and we had much more. It wasn't packed or anything, but we definitely had a better crowd the second day, and we brought our people, so it was like Brad, Emily, Scotty, John, and they were kind of rocking out to what we were doing, and they got a lot of the crowd kind of singing along to one of my songs, which was very cool. And then, I think we ended the night with Eat, Sleep, and Don't Die. And I think we did a pretty decent performance of that song. And that was something I was talking to everybody about, is like, when we would play those songs, like, I probably over glorify a lot of like the band in my head as far as the past, but the times that we would play that song, or one of the ones I brought up that was the first song we ever played together, DJ Scribbles, when we would play either of those songs, and we were all kind of in the zone and feeling right, and we'd been playing a lot and stuff. The feeling you would get from though, you just feel so powerful and so confident and so just in the moment. And I think those like, as much as I overglorify a lot of the things that probably happened, those moments were fun and real and awesome. And I miss those. I miss those a lot for sure. But as you get older, it gets harder and harder to make the band thing work. So I end up just playing a lot by myself, or in this new setup, the 3-piece setup, which is a lot of fun. It's just different, it's not really the same thing. And I don't get because when Blair was singing and playing, we'd do about 50-50. So I would just get to play guitar for half the songs, and that would kind of rest me up for my songs. And I wasn't bogged down by the foot drums, which I enjoy doing the foot drums. It makes me a better musician, and I think it's more fun to see a one-man band, if you're like into dancing at all, than it is to like just an acoustic guy. But anyway, so it's just it's evolved quite a bit, and those are my I guess those would be the glory days. Maybe I don't know. Maybe now's the glory days. That's kind of more the way I lean. But there were some real fun times had, and in those moments of those songs when we would play them, I full body chills a lot of the time, and just out of my body experiences a lot of the time, and that's why I continue this pursuit. I don't think I've ever going to a show and seeing somebody feel the way that I felt is almost equally as fun, but actually being the person kind of providing that energy is a whole different level. And it was just a blast, and I hope that at some point we'll play together. Blair still plays with us once in a while, and Kev still records with us all the time. We need a solid bass part to stuff, and D moved to Vegas. There's really not really a lot we can do to get him involved at all anymore, and that's really when I think we kind of fell apart the most. Blair, has been in and out kind of since we recorded Design to Shine. Even before that, though, I think he was kind of, there were a couple times he questioned whether he should continue playing with us, but then it actually came to fruition when we were spent the 3 years on Design to Shine. And after that album was over, Big D decided to move, which was probably best for him, but worse for the band. Obviously, you can't really do a whole lot with him if he's in Vegas. And Vegas isn't even somewhere I'd want to live for sure, but makes sense for him. He's a late night guy, and likes people a lot. I like late nights, but I can only handle so much socializing. He's like the exact opposite, I feel like. But so yeah, and then we had Kyle Yap play drums for us for a while, and that kind of kept us afloat. We'd do some shows full band, and then he had a second kid, and we had a couple shows where he didn't really have any time to practice with us, and they were like big shows that were a little sloppy, so we ended up not really keeping that alive. And then I got the conga, the hand percussionist involved, Dave, and we've done some shows with all of us, plus Lo, plus Dave, and Lo was singing with Kyle a lot as well when he was playing drums. So she was around for that part in time. And I mean, the main reason Laura Lynn started singing with me in the first place is because Blair quit, and I wanted somebody to kind of help me out with filling time, and somebody that could do harmony really well, and she was great at that naturally. So she started singing with me, and then I tried to mash that into the full band thing with Kyle, and then Kyle kind of waned a little bit, and then we brought Dave in, and then me, Dave, and Lo were doing a bunch of shows by ourselves all the time, and then Blair would come once in a while, which after D left, Blair would play like every weekend with me. We would have all these shows, and we would make so much money, and we'd play like every Friday, Saturday, and he'd come to both, and it got to a point where he couldn't really handle that, or that was too much to expect. And then I'm constantly trying to mash everything together. I'm trying to I want Dave involved in the recordings, but I want Kev also involved, and I want I would like it if Blair was involved as well, and he did guitar on the last song that we've recorded. But anyway, so that's kind of where we're at now. It's just a different thing, It's fun. It's a good time. It's just a different type of good time. We're all we're all like adults technically, even though in my head I'm definitely not. But anyway, so that's kind of one of the stories. I'll probably talk about our House of Blues show coming up, and I'll talk about our Double Door show and our thing up in Detroit, and a couple house party, frat house kind of things we've done, and just a lot of stories that I've kind of forgotten all about. So we played at the Congress Theater for a Battle of the Bands thing. That'll probably be one of them. So that'll be some stuff I'm, filling in some time talking about, because I feel like, if I don't, that stuff will get lost forever. And anyway, so that's what we've been. Well, that was from a long time ago, and then the show at Clark Bar, and next week I'll be talking about my show at Houdini's. And as always, anybody who took the time to listen, I really appreciate you, and I'll talk to you next time.